Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Politics Lab on YouTube. My name is Bill Muck. I'm a professor of political science at North Central College, and I'm joined, as always, by my colleague and best friend, Dr. Phil Barker, who's a professor of political science at Keene State College. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Bill. How's it going?
It's going well. I love the guitars. Is that a banjo behind you?
It is. It's a banjo, yes.
Or banjos?
It's just one banjo, but it's, I would like to have more, but one's a good start.
I'm very, very impressed. So,
I'm a man of the people, Bill.
It shows. Well, we're here today to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Georgia freshman from who's all sorts of controversy. We're going to kind of break her down, and maybe to start, I'll just give our listeners a little overview. She has endorsed QAnon, which argues that Donald Trump is a messiah sent to defeat Satan-worshiping, child-abusing deep state villains. She's promoted the conspiracy theory that the 2018 Camp Fire was caused by a space laser controlled by a prominent Jewish banking family. Floated the idea that the Clintons had John F. Kennedy Jr. killed. Has dabbled in 9/11 trutherism. Has liked a post that said that Nancy Pelosi should be shot. Contended that various school shootings were false flag operations, and has been known to traffic in racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-Muslim language. Phil, this is where the Republican Party wants to be, right?
American democracy at its best. I was thinking as you read all of those, my tinfoil hat from a few episodes ago is still over on the shelf, and I feel like I should grab it.
This would have been a good one for the tinfoil hats, yeah.
She's fascinating. I mean, this is fascinating in a really terrifying way. I think she's really we were talking before we started recording. This is kind of a thermometer for the state of the Republican Party, and I think it's important to note that I don't think she's typical, right? She's not your average. Most Republicans don't buy into this, but at the same time, they're also not repudiating her, right? I mean, she's not. There have been a number of members of Congress or the Senate. Or the House, either one, who have been expelled or shunned by their party. And there's no sign that the Republicans are planning to shun her. In fact, she had a phone call with Donald Trump this week, right? Which is, again, Donald Trump is out. He's out. He's not the current president. But the fact that Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader in the House, was also meeting with Trump, gives some indication that Trump is still, I mean, this is his party. And the fact that Trump is putting his stamp of approval on her is sort of frightening. I mean, this isn't even getting into the insanity of these things, right? I mean, these are not like the stuff she's talking about. They're not just unpopular or kind of slightly out there ideas. She's not Rand Paul, who's like going a little libertarian. These are crazy conspiracy theories, and there's no indication that the Republican Party is going to do it. I mean, they've put her on the education committee and all sorts of other stuff. That all bodes really badly for me. I mean, we've been talking over the last couple of weeks about what direction the Republican Party goes now, and it's kind of this turning point. And the fact that she's not only around, but has become kind of the focus of attention of a lot of people in the Republican Party, that's bad news. I mean, she's like, I don't know, she's kind of becoming the AOC of the Republican Party, this media, this person that the media likes to pay attention to. And, AOC has her own things, but it's like a whole different world. She's leftist and advocates for the Green New Deal versus believes that Jewish people have a space laser.
Oh. Yeah, it's right. I mean, one of those things on that list should be disqualifying. And I think that's the reality. Like she should not have been able to win office. And the Republican Party certainly should do something about it. Now, McCarthy has said he's going to give her a talking to, that they're going to have a conversation about this, but nothing will come from it because the party doesn't have the ability to censure somebody like that. This is what happens when you give this much power to Trump and Trumpism. We're going to see more candidates like this. And you're right. This doesn't speak for the majority of the Republican Party, but it is certainly part of that Republican Party. We've seen a handful of candidates try to embrace Trumpism, the Ted Cruz and the Josh Hawley, but that's not who they are, right? They are trying to transform themselves. This is who she is, right? I mean, this is organic, authentic. She's a conspiracy theorist. This is what happens when Donald Trump is not pushed back and when the party doesn't put principles in effect. So it's comical if it wasn't so dangerous that she can have this voice. And, the comparison to AOC is really interesting because you're right. They're both on the edge pushing the party, but in very, very, very different ways.
Right. Yeah. She's an important part of the party in that it's a branch of the party that I feel like the vast majority of Republicans in office would want to distance themselves from, except for the fact that it's clear that they think they need that branch of the party's vote. And I think it's also important to point out that this is, trying to give Republicans the benefit of the doubt or whatever. She also represents a growing and significant chunk of the Republican Party. The percentage of Republicans who believe in QAnon and buy into some of that, buy into the idea that Donald Trump was going to save us from, cannibalistic pedophiles is like, that's a huge number of people. So it's not insignificant. We're not talking about, 3% of the Republican Party. That's part of why it's been so hard for Republicans to distance themselves, I think, because it's become such a big part of the party. This is also a failure on the Democrats' part, I think, because if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to go back and look. She ran unopposed, I think, right? Once she won the Republican nomination, there was no Democrat to run against her. It's another example of where Democrats need to be better at challenging every seat, no matter what, even if it's a district that you're not likely to win. It's important to have that person there because, I don't know, the longer she's around, the longer she has this microphone and this mouthpiece, the more, the more influence she has.
And at this point, the Republican Party has very little power over her. I mean, they could go the Steve King route where they pull her away from committees and they try to censor her. But as you noted, there are real consequences for that along with the base. I mean, all these Republicans, we had a conversation a few weeks back about where the Republican Party was going to go. It's clear. It's pretty clear where it's going. It's still staying with Trump, which means that all of these candidates have to worry about being primaried by candidates like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I almost feel a little bad for Mitch McConnell because the party, he doesn't have the control anymore. I mean, if they were going to stop this, they had to do it much earlier. They had to speak out against all of these conspiracy theories. And now if they do it, it's inauthentic and they're just going to get hammered in the next election. So, I mean, it's terrifying for the democracy that you've got one, major party where an element of that party is firmly grounded in conspiracy theories and untruths. And I don't know how you have a serious political conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's back to what the buzzer has gone off, but this is back to it's the idea again of how do you have a conversation? How do you have a debate when you don't agree on basic facts? When somebody or when a branch of one of the main parties is absorbed by conspiracy theories, there's no like convincing them that we should meet halfway on policy. I also I don't really, I mean, maybe this is just the lure of power. It's hard for me to wrap my head around the Mitch McConnells of the world who clearly have things that they want to accomplish. They believe in, core Republican principles about government and about taxation and whatever. But also he clearly knows this is all insanity, right? But it blows my mind that there are people who are willing to basically say, I will bite my tongue or go down the road of this insanity just to stay in power. That's I don't know, that's so strange. I mean, I know that that's the story of politics, right? Like, I don't want to be naive. This is human history, but it's just a strange dynamic.
I read something this last week that was talking about the difference in the Republican Party between the gamers, the Mitch McConnells, who are trying to game the system for political advantage, and the breakers, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump, who are trying to break that system. And now the Republican Party of gamers has to deal with these breakers who are trying to break the very system that they've benefited from. So I don't know how the party moves forward without this being a major voice. And it is going to continue to be as much of a problem as Steve King was with his racist language. This is going to be much worse because Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going to be quiet. The Democrats sometimes get frustrated with AOC grabbing the conversation. Marjorie Taylor Greene realizes that she's potentially a rising star and the next authentic Trump. Man, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to moderate her.
And it's not just a problem for the Republican Party, which is what we've been talking about. It's a problem for the country, right? When a
Yes.
huge segment of the country decides that breaking the system is the way forward, that bodes poorly for democracy, but for, electoral violence, all sorts of other stuff. It's one of many, big red flags that we should be concerned about as citizens.
I think that's right. There are many who think that Biden's election and actually getting into power means the end of this. I think the reality is that we're just beginning to see how this is going to play out. And I think you're right. We're going to see violence. We're going to see ugliness. We're going to see fights within the Republican Party. It is very, very dangerous for the long-term stability of the democracy. Well, we should probably wrap up on that point. If you're enjoying the conversation, please tune in on Wednesday for the podcast. And we always do these once a week on YouTube. So see you then, Phil.
See you on Wednesday, Bill.